Hello strangers and story lovers, and welcome to my lair. So today we're doing a recap of all the books that I've read during the month of June. And I would say overall it wasn't too bad a month, it's just some of the books were a bit of a disappointment. At first I kind of wanted to start by reading Iron Flame, the sequel to Fourth Wing, but then I realized that I needed a bit of a break from Fourth Wing, so I just read something completely unrelated. And my first book of the month was Brighter Than Scale, Swifter Than Flame by Neon Young, which I had so much hope for. First of all, and very superficially, I think the cover looks really nice. But then also the summary was teasing me Mandalorian with lesbians and dragons. That sounds awesome to me. So I bought it and I was just like, oh, I wonder if this is going to be a 5 or a 4 stars. It turns out it's a 2 stars. I was massively disappointed. First of all, I like The Mandalorian as a TV show. I haven't watched it completely because I kind of don't have that much time anymore for TV shows, sadly. But I do like it. I do like the premise. I think it's a good TV show. So obviously if you sell me The Mandalorian with lesbians and dragons as a premise, I'll be there for it. But the thing is, the only thing it has in common with The Mandalorian is that the main character has an armor and she doesn't want to remove her helmet due to the culture. And I feel like this is such a superficial connection to The Mandalorian. I'm sorry, this is not why I like The Mandalorian. It's not just because he wears a helmet. It's because the action scenes are amazing, the characters are great, and the connection between The Mandalorian and Grogu, the baby Yoda that he adopted, is the most precious thing. So it's a lot of really cool action and a lot of heart, and this is what personally I like about The Mandalorian, and this is kind of what I was hyped to find in this book. But I don't really find that it has any of that. Like I said, the only connection that I see between Brighter Than Scale, Swifter Than Flame and The Mandalorian is the fact that they never remove their helmet. Yeah, like, you can have that in your book, of course, like, nobody is ever going to stop you from doing that. But if that's the only connection, that is just so superficial. And if that were my only grief against this book, that would be fine, you know, like, I don't mind that specifically. But this book felt very, I don't know really how to say, it felt more like a summary of a book. Like, there was never anything that felt really dug into. I felt like I was reading a long recap of a book. The book is a novella, so at least it was short, but I wonder if by having it longer, it would have become more, I don't know, deep? Yeah, I just felt like nothing was really being dug into. The characters felt really underexplored, and the relationship as well. That too felt like a complete recap, to the point where I felt like I was supposed to, I don't know, make up my own story in a way. There's literally a moment where they start, the two main characters, so the main character and her love interest just start to kind of bond together, and I was like, oh cool, we're finally gonna see the scene where their romance develops. But no, it starts and then you have they spent 3 months together and then they're kind of in love. Like, I don't know, just don't give me the recap, show me the scenes, show me how they get closer, just something. If I wanted to read a summary, I wouldn't be reading a book. So yeah, all in all, it just felt like a book summary where the only thing that was kept intact was the character's inner monologue. Because damn, it felt like the one thing the book wouldn't skip over was the character's sense that she didn't really belong anywhere. Which is interesting, don't get me wrong, but it's not necessarily the main thing that I'm looking for in a book that sells itself as The Mandalorian with dragons and lesbians. So yeah, I was very disappointed because the concept sounds awesome. And yeah, when I put my greasy little fingers on the book, I was really expecting to give it a 5 stars on Goodreads. But in the end, I didn't like it, and I felt so disappointed. I don't even know who I would recommend this to. I guess if you just want a really quick read, you can get that, but honestly, the action is not even that fun. The romance was very underwhelming as far as I was concerned. The dragons are barely there in the story. It's like they're more like a pretext to the story. So you don't really see them, you don't really hang out with them. There's really only one that you see. Let's just say it didn't really scratch the need that I had for dragons. So yeah, overall I would say pretty underwhelming. I wouldn't really know who to recommend it to other than someone who really likes quick reads and legends. I guess it does have a little bit of a legendy vibe, but then again, even for a legend, there's just so much inner monologue that I didn't feel like it was supposed to be a legend. So yeah, just not for me, and I'm gonna stop rambling about it. Next book is When the Tides Held the Moon by Venessa, Vida, Kelley. So this one was a pleasant read as far as I was concerned. So this one is another queer romance between a human and a merman. It's set in the 1910s in New York and focuses mainly on the cast of a freak show. The main character joins the freak show that has just kidnapped a merman basically, and it's the story of the two of them meeting and becoming in love. And I like mermaids, and I like the concept of freak shows as well, so I was pretty hyped about this book, and it didn't disappoint. First of all, I really liked the whole cast of the freak show. They were really sweet, very just adorable, and there was this little bit of found family between them and the main character. I liked all of the connections between them, and I was also invested in the romance between the main character and the merman. And yeah, there was just a pleasant read. I ended up giving that one a 4 stars. I thought the style was really nice, the characters were all super precious. You get the perspective of the merman as well, which I really enjoyed because it always read as really poetic. So yeah, I don't have that much to say about it. I just felt like it was a cool story with some really cool characters whose backstory were pretty much always well looked into. Like I just really enjoyed all of the different characters, and I like that it wasn't just the 2 romantic leads that were important. Like you did get time with all of the characters from the freak show, which I really liked. But yeah, that's it. I like this book. I thought it was really cool. Next book, Gideon the Ninth by Tamsyn Muir, whose name I hope I haven't butchered. So Gideon is a bit of a special book for me because I've joined a writing group a few years ago and I'm still friends with them. They're amazing women and I love them to bits. To whoever of you is watching this. And yeah, there is a lot of love in this group for this specific book, and so my intrigue has been piqued for a long time, and this book has been on my TBR for a few years now, and I never really made the time to read it, and I finally read it. And funny thing is, I actually went on holidays with some of my friends from this writing group, and they saw that I was reading it, and they were all like, oh my god, you're finally reading it, amazing. And yeah, I finally read it. And I loved it. It was a really fun time. It was not exactly what I was expecting, because I was expecting it to be a bit more epic and battle heavy, but in the end it was a bit more quiet and people trying to figure things out. Like a lot of puzzle solving and exploring and things like this. Which really I should have seen coming because it's literally written on the book cover. Lesbian necromancers explore a haunted gothic palace in space. So yeah, apparently lesbian books have really strong concepts. So yeah, that's pretty much what you need to know about the book. You have these different houses who practice necromancy, and at some point they are kind of gathered in a castle somewhere in space. And there's this kind of competition to become this really powerful necromancer that's called a lictor, and that is in the service of the emperor. And our main character, Gideon from the Ninth House, is kind of tricked to become House Ninth Harrow Cavalier, which kind of is a sort of protector or something. So yeah, she gets tricked into helping her, and so she is sent to this castle where she meets a lot of people. And yeah, I understand why my friends are so obsessed with this book. I thought it was really cool. Gideon especially. Yeah, I get it. I get why some of my friends have a massive crush on her now. She's basically the person I want to be, like, just come in somewhere, kick ass, and crack jokes as you do. I mean, even just her character design, like, you know, the face paint, the sunglasses. And I know character design has very little relevance in books, but still, I liked it. Picturing her in my head was always really fun. I was always like, oh my god, this character design is perfect. I love it. Especially every time she mentions that she puts on her sunglasses, I was like, yes, yes, the sunglasses, baby. The final touch to your amazing costume. The story is told from her point of view, and her voice was amazing. I loved it. She is just hilarious. And I loved the side characters as well. They were all brilliant, all very colorful as necromancers can be, I guess. They all stood out in their own right. Like, there was no character that I felt was bland or uninteresting. They all felt real. And there were some that I really liked, and there were some that I didn't like so much, but the characters that I didn't like so much, I don't think I was supposed to like them anyway. And there were some twists and turns in the story where you would see some allegiance changing, quote unquote, and there was always a good reason for it, and none of the characters felt like they were not true to themselves at any point in the story. It's just like my point of view on certain characters would change based on something new that I learned or some new twists and turns in the plot, but the characters always remain true to themselves. And I don't know, that's something that I really liked, because you can find that in books sometimes where at some point, at some twist in the story, a character just does a 180 and has a completely different personality from now on. That didn't happen there. They were all just true to themselves to the end. It was just suddenly their goal changed. Like, there was a twist in the plot that justified their behavior changing, even though they hadn't changed themselves. So yeah, I just thought that was really well done. I guess the reason why I didn't give this one a 5 is mostly puzzle solving isn't exactly my type of book. So I would say it's nothing against the book itself, just not entirely my thing. But I loved it, I had a really good time with it, and I'm definitely going to read the sequels. Next book, Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V. Schwab. And yeah, that was another disappointment this month. And this one legit breaks my heart. I wanted to like this book so much because I loved Vicious, I loved Vengeful by V. Schwab. I love her style and how she writes. I didn't like this book. It's beautifully written, but I just didn't like it. I ended up giving it a 3, though I debated for a while whether I wanted to give it a 2. But in the end, I didn't really want to. I can't justify it, but I felt like a 2 was way too harsh. It's a beautiful book, it's just really not for me. So the concept of this one is toxic lesbian vampires. Could be interesting. Not as strong as lesbian necromancers explore a haunted castle in space or Mandalorian with dragons and lesbians, let's be honest, but still can be interesting. I felt like the book really struggled to start. Like, we have a very long time where I felt like nothing really happened. The idea is that you follow at first these two women. The first one is Maria / Sabine in the past, like I think 14th century or something. And in the present days, you have this chick called Alice who has a one-night stand with a woman called Lottie. And for a while I was reading and I was just like, what the hell? Nothing is happening in this book. Like, when does it start? I was at page 200 and I still felt like the book hadn't properly started. Like, I was reading about Maria's sad marriage and Alice's one-night stand. And I was just like, this is just not my kind of story. When is the actual story starting? So yeah, I read this for 200 pages, wondering when the actual story was going to start and thinking like, oh wow, 200 pages is a really long time for a story not to have started yet. And you have a bit more focus on Maria, not so much on Alice, which was fine because honestly I didn't really care that much about Alice. And I thought Maria/Sabine was a much more compelling character. And yeah, it's along page 200 and 250 that I started realizing that the story hadn't started because this was the story. For the longest time, you just see Maria drifting from one life to the next when she becomes a vampire. So she becomes a vampire pretty late in the book, and then you just see her drifting from one story to the next. And it's just not my thing at all. I don't really like this type of story, and you really need a very compelling character for me to be invested in this type of story. And I thought Sabine was relatively compelling, but when I feel like the story is getting nowhere, I just cannot wrap my head around it, and I just keep reading, wondering what is the point of it. And that is pretty much what happened to me here. I was reading, I was enjoying the scenes separately, and my brain kept thinking, yeah, but why am I reading this? I do not care. Even though there were a few moments from Sabine's perspective that I was actually emotionally involved. Like the scene with Matteo, I was really into it. I thought it was really sad and it was heartbreaking, but still I was reading and I was wondering, what is the point in the grand scheme of the story? And the point is the impact that it has on Sabine's/Maria's character that justifies the things that will happen later in the story when there finally starts having a point to it. But yeah, for me it was just, the point was not worth witnessing all of the drifting of the character, just like going from one scene to the next, one person to the next, one life to the next. It's just really not my vibe. And then you have Alice, who is very, 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 very slowly realizing that she's become a vampire following her one night stand with Lottie. And to me, it just felt really bland. I wasn't invested at all. I did not care for Alice. To be fair, she is barely in the story at first because a lot of things happen with Maria/Sabine and you barely see Alice, and then little by little she starts having more things happen to her and she starts realizing what she is becoming and she starts trying to find solutions, but it's always very little and she's just not very compelling. And there's this thing happening to her which is like life-changing, and the only thing she can think about is her freaking sister. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, I barely care about Alice and now you're asking me to care about her stupid sister. And the sister gave me Chloe from Life is Strange vibe, and I know some people like her, but I really didn't like Chloe from Life is Strange, so obviously I didn't care for Alice's sister Cathy. And yeah, the fact that I'm trying to read about lesbian vampires and suddenly I'm hit with this family drama about a teenage girl who doesn't like her stepmom, I struggled. I really struggled with this book. But because I've enjoyed Vicious and Vengeful so much, I really wanted to finish it, thinking there's got to be something that's gonna make it worth it at the end. So I kept reading the book, and every time I opened it, I was just like, oh god, I have to keep reading this book. And yeah, at some point in the story, I started realizing, no, okay, there's nothing that's going to make it worth it for you, but I've read so much, might as well finish it. And I also got a little bit curious, I have to admit. But yeah, in the end, there was really nothing to make it worth it for me. That being said, I still think it's a good book. It's a well-told story with amazing style. Like, there were a few moments where I was like, okay, that is gorgeously written. So I think if you like the experience of watching a character drift from one moment of their life to the next, that book could very well be for you. It just wasn't for me because I don't really like that type of story. So yeah, if anything that I've just said about the book sounds at all appealing to you, I would say go ahead, because it is really beautifully written. It's a well-told story. There's really nothing wrong with the book. It's really just not my type of things. And on that note, I think I'm done with what I read in June. That's it. If you decide to pick up any of the books that I've just talked about, I really hope you have a grand old time. Even if there's some of the books that I didn't like, because at the end of the day, some people do enjoy them. The one book that I would recommend the most from this month's reading would be Gideon the Ninth. That was my favorite one this month. So yeah, anyway, let me know in the comments if you agree or disagree with any of my thoughts on the book. That's always interesting. And that's it. Thanks for tuning in, and continue to enjoy stories.